You lather it into your scalp every morning. The same bottle on the edge of your shower, the one you grab without reading. The Environmental Working Group screened more than 1,200 shampoos sold in American drugstores and flagged preservatives the labels never explained. One of those preservatives releases formaldehyde every time it touches water, absorbed through your scalp while you stand in the shower. One brand sounds organic, sits in the premium aisle, and kept using a formaldehyde releaser years after its parent company publicly pledged to stop. It has been in American bathrooms for over a decade. I'll show you one word on any label that exposes it in 5 seconds. 9 to throw out, 2 that earned it. The list gets worse as it goes. We start with the smallest bottle on the shelf. Number 11. VO5. Alberto Feed. O5 has been on American shelves since the 1950s. You can find it in practically every drugstore checkout aisle in the country, often for about $1. At that price, nobody expects a premium product. But what most people don't realize is that the first ingredient after water, the one the bottle contains more of than anything else, is sodium lauryl sulfate. Sodium lauryl sulfate is a surfactant. That's a technical word for a degreaser. It strips oil off surfaces, and it does it aggressively. It's the same basic cleaning agent found in engine degreasers and industrial floor cleaners. Used in a shampoo, it removes your scalp's natural oils so thoroughly that your body starts overproducing oil to compensate. The shampoo that's supposed to keep your hair clean is quietly training your scalp to get greasier faster, which means you need to wash more often, which means you buy more shampoo. The cycle is not accidental. The EWG's Skin Deep database gives VO5 Herbal Escapes a moderate hazard score. Dig into the full ingredient list and you'll find DM Hydantoin, a formaldehyde-releasing preservative we'll come back to repeatedly in this video. You'll also find synthetic fragrance, which under federal law allows the manufacturer to hide dozens of undisclosed chemicals behind a single word on the label. Imagine buying a can of soup and the label just said flavoring, instead of listing what's actually inside. That's what fragrance means on a shampoo bottle. It's a legal loophole that was written decades ago, and VO5 uses every inch of it. The cost of the ingredients in that dollar bottle is measured in fractions of a penny per pump. The detergent, the undisclosed fragrance chemicals, the formaldehyde-releasing preservative. You're not getting a deal. You're getting the cheapest possible formula someone could bottle and still legally call shampoo. The brand at number 2 publishes its full ingredient sourcing and has held an EWG verified badge for years. We get there after the turn. 10 times the price, same problems, friendlier label. Number 10. Garnier Fructis. Garnier Fructis is owned by L'Oreal, the largest cosmetics company on the planet. The bottles are bright green, covered in pictures of fruit, and the word fructis comes from the Latin word for fruit. Every single thing about the packaging says fresh and natural. Flip the bottle and read. The primary cleaning agent in most Garnier Fructis shampoos is sodium lauryl sulfate, SLES, is made by adding ethylene oxide to SLS. That process is called ethoxylation, and the problem is that ethylene oxide is classified as a known human carcinogen by the National Toxicology Program. The manufacturing process can leave behind trace amounts of a byproduct called 1,4-dioxin, which the EPA lists as a probable carcinogen. 1,4-dioxin doesn't appear on the ingredient list because it's a contaminant, not an intentional additive. So the label can be technically accurate and still incomplete. That's the gap between legal and honest. Garnier also loads several formulas with artificial dyes, yellow 5, red 4. These are cosmetic colorants added so the shampoo looks appetizing sitting in the bottle. They serve zero purpose for your hair or scalp. They exist because marketing research showed that a green bottle filled with clear liquid doesn't sell as well as a green bottle filled with bright, fruity-looking liquid. You're washing your hair with food coloring because a focus group responded to it. Think of it like dyeing the frosting on a grocery store cake. The color is not flavor, it's a costume, and the dyes themselves are derived from petroleum, which is not something you'd associate with the fruit salad on the front label. L'Oreal reported over 41 billion euros in revenue in 2023. They have research labs on 4 continents. They could reformulate every Garnier Fructis bottle with mild, plant-derived surfactants tomorrow morning. They choose not to because sulfates and synthetic dyes are cheaper per unit, and the fruit on the label does the heavy lifting with consumers who don't flip the bottle. One brand on this list, number 1, uses a coconut-derived surfactant that cleans just as well without stripping your scalp. It costs roughly the same per wash as Garnier. We get there at the end. What happens when the same preservative problem shows up in a brand that already paid for it in court? Number 9. Suave. Suave is owned by Unilever, one of the two largest personal care conglomerates in the world. It has marketed itself as salon quality at a fraction of the price for decades. That phrase has been on Suave packaging for as long as most people can remember. In 2012, consumers filed a class action lawsuit against Unilever alleging that Suave keratin infusion hair products caused severe hair loss, scalp irritation, and visible thinning. The products were marketed as formaldehyde-free. They contained a chemical that released formaldehyde when it came in contact with water. In 2014, Unilever agreed to pay $10.2 million to settle that lawsuit. The ingredient responsible was DMDM-hydantoin, the formaldehyde releaser that keeps appearing on this list. Unilever settled, paid out, acknowledged the problem, and then continued selling other Suave products with similar ingredient profiles. The settlement specifically covered the keratin infusion line. The broader Suave shampoo range kept moving off shelves. Here's the home test I promised you. Flip any shampoo bottle and scan the ingredient list for one word, hydantoin. If you see DMDM-hydantoin anywhere on that label, you are holding a shampoo that releases formaldehyde when it mixes with the water in your shower. That's it. One word. Takes about 5 seconds. If the label says hydantoin, put the bottle back on the shelf. Suave is what a $10 million lesson looks like when the company that paid it doesn't apply it across the building. Your grandmother probably trusted this brand because it was affordable and had been around forever. The lawsuit settlement barely made the news. Unilever did not take out a full-page ad to explain what happened. They wrote a check, and the bottles stayed on the shelf with a slightly different formula and the same name. The brand at number 1 has refused to use any formaldehyde-releasing preservative since the day it launched. It costs less per wash than Suave keratin, about 10 minutes away. What shampoo lists its harshest ingredient first and sits in more medicine cabinets than aspirin? Number 8. Head & Shoulders. Head & Shoulders is manufactured by Procter & Gamble and has been America's best-selling dandruff shampoo for decades. It is classified as an over-the-counter drug by the FDA because it contains pyrithione zinc as its active ingredient. That part actually works. Pyrithione zinc has real antifungal properties. The European Scientific Committee on Consumer Safety reviewed the studies and found it safe at concentrations up to 1% in rinse-off products. No argument there. But look at the inactive ingredients. The first one listed after water in Head & Shoulders Classic Clean, according to the FDA's Daily Med database, is sodium lauryl sulfate, not sodium laureth sulfate, which is the milder cousin, the harsher version, SLS, the one dermatologists specifically warn patients with sensitive scalps to avoid. And if you have dandruff, your scalp is already sensitized. Starting that ingredient list with SLS is like prescribing a cough syrup that makes your throat dry. Several Head & Shoulders formulas also contain methylchloroisothiazolinone and methylisothiazolinone, two preservatives that are among the most common causes of allergic contact dermatitis in personal care products. The American Contact Dermatitis Society named methylisothiazolinone its Allergen of the Year in 2013. That designation means enough patients were arriving in dermatology offices with reactions to this specific chemical that the professional body flagged it nationally. These preservatives show up in the same bottle that promises itchy scalp care. Read that label again slowly. Imagine buying a dandruff shampoo that solves one scalp problem while potentially triggering 2 more. The zinc treats the fungus. The SLS dries the scalp raw. The preservatives may inflame it. You're paying to chase your own symptoms in a circle and buying a new bottle every month to keep running. P&G could replace both the SLS and the MI/MCI preservatives with milder alternatives and still deliver effective dandruff treatment. The active ingredient, pyrithione zinc, works regardless of the surfactant around it. The reason Head & Shoulders hasn't changed is simpler than science. This formula already sells $300 million a year globally. Reformulating costs money up front. Keeping the formula costs you, the consumer. In scalp irritation, you blame on the weather, on stress, on aging. And every time your scalp reacts, you reach for another bottle of the same shampoo because it says itchy scalp care on the front. One brand in this list leaned on the word natural harder than any other and still ended up in a federal recall for a known carcinogen. Number 7. Herbal Essences. Herbal Essences was launched by Clairol in 1971 and is now owned by Procter & Gamble. The name promises botanicals. The bottles say Bio-Renew. The marketing says Real Botanicals and endorsed by the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew. In December November 2021, Procter & Gamble issued a voluntary recall of aerosol dry shampoo and dry conditioner products from Herbal Essences, Pantene, Aussie, and Waterless. 32 products total across 6 brands. The reason was the detection of benzene, a chemical the FDA classifies as a known human carcinogen. Exposure has been linked to leukemia and cancers of the bone marrow. P&G said the benzene came from the propellant that sprays the product out of the can, not from the formula itself, which means they controlled the supply chain, chose that propellant, and shipped it to millions of homes. Then in February 2024, a separate class action lawsuit was filed, alleging that Procter & Gamble falsely advertised Herbal Essences and Pantene products as containing primarily naturally derived ingredients. The lawsuit claims the natural branding misrepresents the formula. Read the ingredient list on a standard Herbal Essences shampoo, and you'll find sodium lauryl sulfate, synthetic fragrance compounds, and artificial dyes. The botanicals are real, but they're listed near the bottom, meaning by volume, they are a tiny fraction of the formula. Putting a small amount of aloe extract into a base of sulfates and synthetic fragrance and calling it Bio-Renew is like sprinkling fresh parsley on a microwave dinner and calling it farm to table. The garnish is real, the meal is not. P&G reported net sales of over $84 billion in fiscal year 2024. They have the resources to make every Herbal Essences formula match the promise on the label. The botanicals are there for the front of the bottle. The sulfates are there because they're cheap. The consumer pays the premium price for the picture of the plant, not the plant itself. In October 2022, Unilever issued a separate sweeping recall of aerosol dry shampoos from Dove, Tresemmé, Suave, and Nexus, also for benzene. 2 of the biggest personal care companies in the world, recalling products for the same carcinogen in the same type of can within a year of each other. That is not one bad batch. That is an industry problem hiding behind individual brand names. When a brand says gentle on the front and lists a formaldehyde releaser on the back, the question is not whether they know the difference. It's why they left it there. Number 6. Dove. Dove is owned by Unilever, the same parent company that paid $10.2 million to settle the Suave keratin lawsuit at number 9. Dove has built its entire brand identity around the word gentle. Gentle care for beautiful hair, nourishing oil care, moisture. According to the FDA's Daily Med database, multiple Dove shampoo formulations list DMDM hydantoin among their ingredients. The same formaldehyde-releasing preservative that triggered the Suave settlement. The same one that sits at the center of the Tresemmé and OGX lawsuits. The EWG's Skin Deep database confirms that DMDM hydantoin appears across several Dove shampoo and conditioner products, including their Men Plus Care Sensitive Scalp line and their Dermacare Scalp range. Dove also uses methylchloroisothiazolinone and methylisothiazolinone in certain formulas. Those are the same allergen-flagged preservatives from the Head and Shoulders segment. This is the part worth sitting with. Unilever is a corporation with the scientific resources, the lab infrastructure, and the regulatory expertise to know exactly what these preservatives do. They already settled a lawsuit over one of them in a different product line, and then they continued using the same ingredient in a brand marketed specifically as gentle, aimed at a customer who is buying gentleness as the value proposition. The Suave buyer got a class action settlement. The Dove buyer is still lathering. A shampoo that promises gentle care should not need a preservative that releases a known carcinogen to prevent mold growth. Safer preservatives exist and cost only slightly more per unit. Sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate, phenoxyethanol, all are used in products at the same price tier or lower. It's like a restaurant printing home-cooked meals on the menu while using a microwave in the kitchen. The food might technically be fine, but the promise on the sign and the process behind the counter don't match, and eventually the customer figures that out. Unilever reported over 60 billion euros in revenue in 2023. The cost difference between DMDM hydantoin and a safer preservative like phenoxyethanol is fractions of a cent per bottle. The company that makes Dove chose to save those fractions. The brand at number 2 uses a completely different preservative system, publishes every ingredient, and sells at a comparable price point. We get there in about 4 minutes. Same parent company, same preservative, different courtroom, and this one is still open. Number 5. Tresemmé. Tresemmé is owned by Unilever through its subsidiary Conopco. It markets itself as salon-quality hair care at drugstore prices, and the Keratin Smooth line promised to make hair deeply nourishing and gently cleansing. In November 2020, a viral social media post detailed one woman's experience of significant hair loss and scalp irritation after using Tresemmé keratin products. Within weeks, hundreds of others came forward with similar stories. By January 2021, the first class action lawsuit was filed in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. The ingredient at the center of every complaint was DMDM hydantoin. The lawsuits allege that Unilever knew about the risks of DMDM D-M-Hydantoin as a formaldehyde donor since at least 2012 and continued using it. They allege that Unilever marketed these products as nourishing and restorative while failing to warn consumers that the preservative had been linked to scalp irritation and hair shedding. The cases were consolidated in the Northern District of Illinois for more efficient litigation. As of 2026, the litigation is still active. A July 2025 ruling in a related case denied class certification due to individualized issues across plaintiffs and differences in state law, which made a single ruling difficult. But new lawsuits continue to arrive. In July 2026, 6 women from 5 different states filed a fresh federal complaint alleging hair loss, visible thinning, and allergic reactions. The courtroom is not settling the question quickly. A May 2025 study tracked more than 1,100 personal care products and found that over half of the women surveyed had used at least one product containing formaldehyde-releasing preservatives in a single week. Shampoos were among the most common sources of exposure. Imagine applying something to your scalp every day for years, reading the words nourishing and gentle on the front of the bottle, and then discovering the manufacturer had known about the preservative problem for a full decade before you ever heard the word hydantoin. That is the timeline the plaintiffs describe. Unilever says D-M hydantoin is safe at approved concentrations and has been cleared by regulatory bodies in the EU and the United States. The lawsuits say the company owes a duty to disclose the risk clearly on the label, regardless of regulatory clearance, because the consumer reading nourishing on the bottle cannot reasonably be expected to know that the preservative listed 18th on the ingredient list releases a recognized carcinogen. The courtrooms are still deciding who is right. In the meantime, the bottles are still on the shelf. The next name on this list triggered the single largest aerosol shampoo recall in recent American memory. Number 4. Pantene. Pantene is Procter & Gamble's flagship hair care brand. It has been one of the top-selling shampoos in the United States for over 30 years, and the brand built its reputation on the ingredient Pro-V, short for Provitamin B5, which it prints on every bottle. In December 2021, P&G recalled 32 aerosol dry shampoo and dry conditioner products across 6 brands. Pantene accounted for a significant share. The reason was benzene contamination. Benzene is classified as a known human carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer and has been linked to leukemia and cancers of the blood and bone marrow. P&G acknowledged the contamination, but stated the benzene came from the propellant, not the formula. A class action lawsuit followed, alleging that P&G made it nearly impossible for consumers to actually claim refunds and that the company's response was inadequate. Consumers described the refund process as designed to discourage participation, not facilitate it. Then, in February 2024, a second class action was filed. This one alleged that Pantene and Herbal Essences products were falsely advertised as containing primarily naturally derived ingredients. The suit claims the phrase naturally derived overstates what's actually in the bottle. 2 lawsuits from the same parent company, covering 2 different categories of deception. One about what they put in the can, one about what they said was in the bottle. Paying $8 or $9 for a bottle of Pantene because it says Pro-V on the front is like buying a car because the dealership hung a pine tree air freshener from the rearview mirror. The feature they're selling you is not the thing doing the work. Pro-V is marketing vocabulary. The sulfates, the synthetic fragrance, the dyes, those are the formula. And that formula is not measurably different from what you'd find in bottles costing half the price. P&G can afford to build a cleaner formulation. They choose the one that protects margins. The Pro-V on the label protects the price. Every verdict you've heard so far gets rechecked in the label report each month, and the link is below. Number 3. OGX. Number 3 is where this list was always headed. This brand does not just rank near the top of the avoid list. It is the brand from the beginning of this video. The one that sounds organic, the one that has been sitting in American bathrooms for over a decade, in the premium section, promising argan oil and biotin and coconut milk on labels carefully designed to look like something from a health food store. OGX, originally called Organics. Johnson & Johnson acquired the brand in 2016 when it purchased Vogue International for $3.3 billion. By that point, OGX was already one of the best-selling drugstore shampoo lines in the country. The bottles looked clean. The name sounded clean: biotin and collagen, tea tree mint, argan oil of Morocco. But according to multiple federal lawsuits filed starting in 2021, many OGX products contained D-M-D-M hydantoin, the same formaldehyde-releasing preservative that runs through this entire list. Here is the detail that separates number 3 from every other brand on the skip list. Johnson & Johnson publicly committed, in 2012, to remove formaldehyde-releasing ingredients from its consumer products by the end of 2015. They made that commitment. They announced it. And according to the lawsuits, OGX products containing MDM, hydantoin remained on American shelves for years past that self-imposed deadline. Johnson & Johnson reformulated in September 2021 after the first lawsuits landed, but did not recall existing inventory already sitting in stores and bathrooms. As of mid-2026, the primary case, Carr versus Johnson & Johnson Consumer Incorporated, remains active in the Eastern District of New York. The court denied J&J's motion to dismiss class allegations in 2023, meaning the case proceeds. No comprehensive settlement covering all affected consumers has been announced. A pharmaceutical conglomerate worth hundreds of billions of dollars promised to stop using a formaldehyde-releasing preservative. It missed its own deadline by approximately 6 years. That is like a restaurant promising to stop using expired meat in 2015 and the health inspector finding it in the walk-in cooler in 2021. During those 6 years, millions of consumers picked up the bottles because the front label said organics, and the ingredient list on the back contained a word they had never been taught to look for. That word was hydantoin, and that is why this brand is number 3. Every brand on the skip list had access to the same safer preservatives: sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate, citric acid. Every single one of them chose the cheaper option, and most printed the word natural or gentle on the front of the bottle while doing it. 9 brands, 9 versions of the same decision. Now the ceiling. The 2 brands coming next are not here because they are the least bad options remaining. They operate under the same cost pressures, sit on the same retail shelves, and compete for the same customers. They made fundamentally different choices about what goes into the bottle, and they publish those choices in full, judged on 3 things: whether every ingredient is disclosed and independently verifiable, whether the formula avoids sulfates, parabens, formaldehyde releasers, and synthetic fragrance entirely, and whether the per-wash cost actually justifies the switch when you do the math. Number 2. Odele. Odele is a women-owned brand based in Minneapolis that launched in 2020 with a premise most major brands would call risky: clean ingredients at drugstore-level prices, sold at Target and nowhere else. Odele shampoos contain no SLS, no SLES, no parabens, no formaldehyde-releasing preservatives, no phthalates, and no synthetic fragrance. Read the back of the bottle and you will understand every ingredient listed. Nothing is hidden behind the word fragrance. Nothing requires a chemistry degree to decode. In a category where the biggest players use the word fragrance to legally conceal dozens of undisclosed compounds, Odele tells you exactly what's in the bottle and lets you decide. The volumizing shampoo uses sodium cocoyl isethionate as its primary cleanser. That's a mild surfactant derived from coconut oil. It foams, it cleans, and it does not strip your scalp of natural oils the way sodium lauryl sulfate does. Where SLS acts like a pressure washer on your scalp, sodium cocoyl isethionate is closer to a warm washcloth. The difference is noticeable within the first week of switching. Odele shampoos retail for about $12 for a 13-ounce bottle at Target. That's roughly 92 cents per ounce. A 12-ounce bottle of Pantene runs about $6 to $7, or around 55 cents per ounce. Yes, Odele costs more per ounce on the shelf, but shampoo usage is measured in pumps, not ounces. Odele's formula is more concentrated, doesn't rely on water-heavy filler, and most people find they use less per wash. Run the math on a per-wash basis and the gap shrinks to a few cents, except one of those brands recalled 32 products for benzene contamination, and the other has never had a safety complaint filed against it. The brand is not organic certified. It does not need to be because it avoids every ingredient flagged on the major watch lists maintained by the EWG and consumer safety organizations. The formulas are gender neutral and cover a range of hair types. They also make conditioner, body wash, and styling products under the same standards. You can order online or walk into any Target in the country today. Number 1. Acure. Acure was founded in San Diego in 2010. It has spent 15 years building one of the cleanest verified ingredient profiles in American drugstore hair care. Every Acure shampoo carries the EWG verified badge. That means the Environmental Working Group has independently reviewed the full ingredient list, checked for over 2,500 chemicals of concern, and confirmed the formula meets their strictest safety standards. This is not a label the company prints on its own packaging. It is earned through third-party audit. and it can be revoked if the formula changes. Most shampoo brands self-certify their own claims. When Herbal Essences says, endorsed by the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew, that's a marketing partnership. When Acure says EWG verified, that's an independent ledger that any consumer can check online in 30 seconds. Compare that directly to OGX, the brand at number 3. OGX built its image on sounding organic while containing a formaldehyde-releasing preservative. Acure is actually verified clean by an outside watchdog. The distance between those two brands is the distance between a label and a ledger. Acure's ultra-hydrating shampoo is built around organic aloe vera and argan oil. The formula contains 0 sulfates, 0 parabens, 0 phthalates, 0 silicones, 0 mineral oil, 0 petrolatum, and 0 formaldehyde releasers of any kind. 100% vegan. The ingredient list is straightforward enough that you could read it to your grandmother over the phone, and she would understand every word without stopping to ask what something means. An 8-ounce bottle costs about $9 to $10 at Target, Walmart, or Whole Foods. That's roughly $1.25 per ounce. More than the dollar store brands, obviously. But consider what you're not paying for. You're not subsidizing a future class action settlement. You're not buying from a brand that promised to remove a carcinogen and waited 6 years. You're not volunteering to be the test case for whether safe at approved concentrations will hold up in the next round of federal litigation. What you're paying for is a bottle whose back label matches its front label. That should be the minimum. For most of this aisle, it isn't. Acure has been making shampoo this way since 2010. No recalls, no lawsuits, no reformulations forced by litigation, no quiet ingredient swaps after a settlement check cleared. They chose the clean route before it was fashionable, and they have held it for 15 years. That is what number 1 looks like. Every shampoo formula in this video can be quietly changed by next quarter. Ingredients get swapped, suppliers get switched, and the front of the bottle stays exactly the same. The label report rechecks every verdict each month and flags reformulations before your next trip to the store. Scan the code on screen or use the first link below. $10 a month, cancel anytime. Go annual and 5 months are free. Just want the method? Both guides are $15, one time. Same link.